In some countries, power wears a uniform. In others, it wears a smile. But there is a kind of power that doesn't wear anything at all. No campaign posters, no party headquarters, no televised debates. Just decisions, appearing like footprints in sand. A single stroke of ink can change the shape of a nation, and by morning, the world adjusts. Some places are ruled by laws, some are ruled by votes, and some are ruled by something far older, something quieter, something that feels untouchable. Tonight, we step into a system where political parties don't compete because they don't exist. And at the center of this system stands one man. Saudi Arabia is not built like most modern states. There are no national elections for political bodies, and political parties are outlawed. Encyclopedia Britannica. That one fact changes everything. Because in places with parties, power has to be explained, it has to be sold, it has to be renewed. But in Saudi Arabia, power is not a product, it's an inheritance. So what happens to a society when there is no Party A and Party B? It develops different survival instincts. Here, influence doesn't gather around slogans. It gathers around relationships, family networks, patronage, institutions, loyalties that don't fit into a ballot box. This is the strange adaptation. Instead of campaigning in public, power is negotiated in private. And that brings us to the question that never fully goes away. If there's no political party, then what replaces one? In Saudi Arabia, the answer is not a single thing. It's a structure, layered like stone. And to understand how Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, runs this structure, we have to descend. In many governments, power flows through parliaments, through party coalitions, through votes that break and rebuild alliances. Saudi Arabia's power can flow through something simpler, a royal order. In September 2022, Saudi state media announced a royal order naming Mohammed bin Salman as Prime Minister, Saudi press agency. Prime Minister, Crown Prince, and already widely described as the kingdom's central decision-maker. This is another adaptation of a partyless system. Instead of power being distributed through party leadership, it concentrates in councils, appointments, and state institutions, often chaired, guided, or reshaped from the top. And here's the unsettling part. When the structure is vertical, speed becomes a weapon. Policies can move faster than public conversation, faster than opposition can form, because opposition has nowhere official to stand. This doesn't automatically tell us what the outcomes will be, good or bad, but it explains the mechanics. A system like this can build fast. It can also harden fast. Which leads to the next question. If there's no political party to organize public demands, how does legitimacy get manufactured? In Saudi Arabia, legitimacy has long rested on pillars: religion, stability, tradition, and something else, something that glows in the dark: money. Large oil reserves in Saudi Arabia. It doesn't just describe geology, it describes leverage. Saudi Arabia has been one of the world's major oil powers for decades, and the US EIA has described the kingdom as the top crude oil exporter in 2023, US EIA. But modern power isn't only about what comes out of the ground, it's about what gets built after. This is where MBS's project enters the frame. Vision 2030, launched in 2016 as a national transformation plan, Saudi Vision 2030. And then there's the machine behind many of its ambitions, the Public Investment Fund, PIF. On PIF's own leadership page, it states the fund operates under the chairmanship and guidance of HRH Prince Mohammed bin Salman. This is the strange adaptation. In a system without political parties, large-scale change doesn't rely on winning elections. It relies on commanding capital. Money becomes a kind of silent party, not made of voters, but of projects. And projects do something magical. They turn the future into a place you can point at. But here's the lingering question, the one that viewers feel in their stomach. If money can build cities, can it also replace representation? Or does it merely postpone the moment when people ask for more than construction? Now we arrive at a colder layer, because every state has a final language, a language spoken when persuasion fails: force. And Saudi Arabia's military spending is among the heaviest on earth. According to SIPRI, Saudi Arabia's military spending in 2024 was estimated at $80.3 billion, making it the largest in the Middle East and seventh largest globally. SIPRI also labels Saudi Arabia among the countries with the highest military burden, around 7.3% of GDP in 2024. Saudi Arabia's military power and comparison with other countries. It doesn't just describe talk, it's measurable scale. In a party-based system, power is often defended in parliament. In a partyless system, stability can lean more heavily on institutions that don't campaign. That's the adaptation. Instead of persuasion through party platforms, the state relies on administration, security architecture, and economic direction, all moving in alignment. But the question lingers unanswered. How do you modernize at high speed without creating cracks in the foundation? Because the faster you move, the more pressure builds, and pressure always searches for an exit. Now we enter the part of the story that feels like science fiction, not because it's imaginary, but because it's too large to hold in the mind. A new Saudi Arabia is being designed in public view: tourism, entertainment, new industries, megaprojects, and yet even megaprojects have gravity. Reuters has reported that Saudi Arabia planned to refocus the PIF, a fund described in that report as $925 billion, away from some large real estate gigaprojects after delays and pressure for returns, which reveals something most people forget. Even in a system of immense top-down power, reality negotiates. This is the adaptation. When you don't have political parties competing over national direction, the debate can happen inside planning rooms, through budgets, timelines, and strategic pivots. But the mystery remains. If the future becomes the main story, if the future becomes the justification, what happens if the future arrives late or arrives differently than promised? And now we descend into the moment that made the world stare. In November 2017, Saudi authorities announced the creation of a high-level anti-corruption committee headed by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, followed by detentions of prominent figures. Human Rights Watch reported the royal decree announcement and raised due process concerns about the arrests. The story was framed as anti-corruption. Many observers also interpreted the episode as a dramatic consolidation of power, a moment when the internal balance of elites visibly shifted. This is the extreme condition. In many countries, political conflict plays out through party splits, elections, resignations. Here, it can play out through committees, detentions, and negotiated settlements, inside a state that does not require party competition to act. And the adaptation is chilling in its simplicity. When you don't have political party structure to absorb conflict, conflict can be dealt with administratively, suddenly, decisively, and behind closed doors. Mohammed bin Salman's hidden lifestyle, not because we can see it clearly, but because the system itself is built to keep the true center of decision-making partially obscured. And the question that lingers, the one that viewers feel in their stomach, is this: when you remove political parties, do you reduce chaos, or do you simply relocate it into rooms we can't enter? So how does Crown Prince Mohammed bin